A normal night together, until he said he wanted my kiss. You know how some nights feel so ordinary you don't think twice about them? Until something happens that rewrites everything you thought you knew? That was me, that was him, that was us. Started as just another night, nothing unusual. Just me and him hanging out the way we always did. It wasn't a special occasion, no party, no reason. Just two guys, two friends, filling the silence of the week with each other's company. We were sitting on my couch, a half-finished pizza box on the coffee table, the kind of night where you don't bother with plates because it doesn't matter. The TV was on, though neither of us were really watching. We had gotten used to this rhythm. Him sprawling out with his feet on the armrest, me curled up at the other end, tossing sarcastic comments back and forth, laughing too loud at jokes only we seemed to find funny. That's what I thought it would be. Another normal night. Another routine memory that would blur into the background of a friendship I thought I understood. But sometimes the things you don't expect, the words that slip out, the way someone looks at you, those are the things that stay. It was late when he said it. Past midnight. The city quiet outside my window. The kind of quiet that presses down and makes every word sound louder than it should. He had this restless energy, shifting around, fidgeting with his drink can, like something was building in him. I noticed, but I didn't push. I was used to him being a little unsettled sometimes. But then he said it, just like that, out of nowhere. I want your kiss. At first I thought he was joking, the way guys sometimes throw things out there just to get a rise. My instinct was to laugh, to roll my eyes, to say, yeah, sure man. But then I looked at him. He wasn't smiling. His eyes weren't teasing. He was serious. And my whole body froze. You know when your brain suddenly tries to catch up with your heart? When it scrambles to explain what just happened, what it just heard. That was me in that moment. The words echoed in my head. I want your kiss. Like they didn't belong to the air around us. Like they were too heavy for the room. I wanted to ask him what he meant. I wanted to say, what are you talking about? But instead I just sat there, staring, because part of me already knew. He leaned forward a little, elbows on his knees, waiting. His face was open in a way I'd never seen before, like he was letting me see something he had been holding back for too long. And God, that look. It was vulnerable, almost fragile, and it scared me. Because here's the truth. I had wanted it too. For longer than I'd ever admit. I had replayed moments in my head. The way his shoulder brushed mine when we walked too close. The way his laughter felt like it settled somewhere inside me. I had buried those feelings, shoved them down under the label of just friends. I told myself he was straight, that he didn't see me that way, that I was imagining it. But now he was sitting there, asking for my kiss. And suddenly all those walls I had built started to crack. My chest tightened. My throat felt dry. I didn't know what to do with my hands, my body, my heart. Everything in me wanted to move closer, to close the distance, to let myself finally feel what I had been holding back. But there was also fear. Fear that this was a mistake, that I was misreading it, that the second I gave in he would pull back and laugh, and I'd be left with nothing but shame. Are you serious? I finally asked, my voice low, shaky, almost afraid to break the spell. He nodded, just once, and his eyes didn't leave mine. That was it.
No joke. No smirk.
Just the truth laid bare between us. And I realized in that moment that nothing about this night was normal anymore. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, could feel the air shift around us. He moved closer, slowly, like he was giving me time to stop him, time to back away if I needed to. But I didn't move, couldn't. I wanted this. I wanted him. And when his hand brushed against mine, hesitant, testing, it felt like electricity sparking through me. He held it there, waiting, and when I didn't pull away, he intertwined his fingers with mine. It was such a small thing, such a simple gesture, but it felt monumental. I've thought about this, he admitted, his voice almost a whisper. More than I should have. That was when I realized he wasn't the only one who had been carrying a secret. We both had. The space between us shrank until I could feel his breath, warm and unsteady, mixing with mine. And in that suspended moment, I wasn't thinking about what it meant or what would happen after. All I was thinking about was him, here, asking for something I had only ever dreamed of. And then, before I could stop myself, before doubt could creep back in, I closed the distance. Our lips met. Tentative at first, uncertain, like we were both afraid of breaking whatever fragile thing we had just created. But then it deepened, slow and desperate, as if all the years of unspoken feelings had finally found their voice. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't practiced. But it was real. And God, it felt like coming home. When we finally pulled back, neither of us spoke right away. We just sat there, breathing hard, staring at each other like we had just crossed a line we could never uncross. And maybe we had. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't care. Because in that kiss, I had found the truth. And the truth was him. The silence after that kiss was almost unbearable. Not because it was awkward, not exactly, but because it was heavy, charged. Every second stretched longer than it should, like the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for one of us to speak, waiting for something to break. He looked at me, really looked at me, in a way I'd never seen before. His eyes weren't searching for a joke, or a distraction, or some way to play things off. They were locked on me, steady, intense. Like he wanted me to know he meant it. Like he needed me to know. And I couldn't look away. My heart was still racing. My lips tingling with the ghost of his. My mind torn between the million questions I should be asking and the one truth I already knew. I didn't regret it. Not one bit. Finally, he spoke. I've wanted to do that for a long time. The words hit me like a confession. A secret spilling into the open after being trapped too long. And suddenly, I couldn't stop myself from laughing. Not out of humor, but out of disbelief, out of the sheer relief of hearing it. Are you serious? I asked again, though this time it came out softer, almost like a plea. He smiled, small, nervous, but real. Yeah, dead serious. I leaned back into the couch, running a hand through my hair, trying to process everything at once. The boy I'd convinced myself I could never have had just admitted he'd wanted this, too. That the longing I thought I carried alone wasn't mine alone after all. I should have felt happy, and I did somewhere deep down. But tangled up with that happiness was fear. Fear of what this meant. Fear of what would happen tomorrow or the day after. Fear of what this would do to our friendship, to him, to me. Why now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He sighed, leaning back beside me, his shoulder brushing mine in that familiar way that had always felt too intimate to be nothing. Only now it wasn't an accident. It wasn't something I had to read into. It was deliberate. Because I couldn't keep it in anymore, he said simply. I kept telling myself it didn't matter, that we were just friends, that I should let it go. But every time I was around you, he trailed off, shaking his head, his jaw tightening. I couldn't. And tonight, I don't know. I just had to say it. I swallowed hard, the weight of his words pressing down on me. Every part of me wanted to believe him, to let myself fall into this without hesitation. But the part of me that had been hurt before, the part of me that knew how fragile these moments could be, it wouldn't stay quiet. What happens now? I asked. He turned to face me, his expression unreadable for a moment. Then, slowly, he reached out and cupped my face with his hand, his thumb brushing lightly across my cheek. The tenderness in that touch nearly undid me. What happens now, he said, is whatever we want. No one else. Just us. It should have been simple. But nothing about this felt simple. I thought about the times he'd dated girls, the way he'd talked about them, how sure I had been that he was straight. I thought about the way I had hidden my feelings, terrified of ruining everything by letting them slip. I thought about how easily this could all fall apart if tomorrow he woke up and decided it had been a mistake. But when I looked into his eyes, I didn't see doubt. I saw certainty. I saw the same longing that had been burning in me for years. And in that moment, I let myself believe him. So I kissed him again. This time it wasn't tentative. This time it was deeper, hungrier, like we were both making up for all the time we had lost pretending. His hand slid behind my neck, pulling me closer, and mine clutched at his shirt like I was afraid he'd disappear if I let go. We didn't stop for a long time. When we finally did, our foreheads rested against each other, our breaths mingling, our bodies tangled together on the couch like we had always belonged there. It was everything I had wanted, everything I had told myself I couldn't have. And yet, beneath the rush of it all, there was still that whisper of fear. Because kisses are easy, wanting is easy, but love is complicated. And the line between friendship and something more is fragile. Once you cross it, you can't go back. I wanted to ask him again if he was sure, if he had really thought this through. But then he whispered, "You don't know how many times I almost told you." And in that moment, I realized maybe he was just as scared as I was. Maybe we both had been carrying the same weight, the same secret, the same fear of breaking something we didn't know how to live without. The difference was now it was out in the open. And maybe that was enough. We stayed like that for hours, talking in hushed voices, our hands never letting go. He told me about the nights he lay awake, replaying our conversations in his head, wondering if I felt the same. I told him about the times I caught myself staring too long, my heart aching with something I couldn't say. It was raw. It was vulnerable. It was terrifying. But it was real. By the time the sun started to rise, painting the sky with soft pinks and blues, we were still curled up together on the couch. Neither of us had slept, but neither of us wanted to, because for the first time, the morning didn't feel like the end of something. Felt like the beginning. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew there would be questions, complications, things we hadn't even begun to figure out. But as he pulled me closer, pressing a soft kiss to my temple, I knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. And that was enough. The thing about beginnings is that they feel like forever when you're in them. That first night after we kissed, after the truth finally slipped through the cracks we'd both been hiding behind, it felt like the world had shifted, like we had crossed into a new universe where everything was tinted with possibility. But forever, I would learn, has a way of testing you. The morning light filtered through my curtains, landing on his face as he dozed lightly against my shoulder. I studied him in a way I had never let myself before. The curve of his lips, the faint crease between his eyebrows, the softness that contradicted the sharp edges he usually carried in the world. I wanted to freeze the moment, to stay in it, to believe that if I just held still enough, life couldn't touch us. But reality doesn't wait for permission. His phone buzzed, a sharp, insistent sound that cut through the fragile cocoon of the night. He stirred, reaching for it, and I felt the shift immediately. His smile faltered as he read the message, his shoulders tensing. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. I already knew it was her. The girl he'd been seeing casually, he had said. The one I had tried not to think about every time I wanted him. He put the phone down, face unreadable, and for a moment we just sat in silence. Then he sighed. I should probably talk to her. And just like that, the weight of the world came crashing back in. I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. Yeah, you should. It wasn't anger that hit me first. It was fear. Fear that last night had been a dream, a mistake, something he would wake up from and try to erase. Fear that I was just a moment of weakness, a curiosity, a secret he'd never let see the light of day. But then he turned to me, his hand finding mine again, squeezing it with a quiet determination. Don't think for a second that I regret this, he said. Not for a second. Something inside me softened at that. The fear didn't vanish, but it loosened its grip enough for me to breathe again. We talked for a while, about her, about us, about the messy middle ground we suddenly found ourselves in. He promised he'd end things, that he couldn't keep pretending when his heart was already here, with me. And I believed him. I had to. But believing didn't erase the uncertainty. When he finally left that morning, the space beside me felt too empty, the silence too loud. I replayed every kiss, every word, every look, searching for reassurance. And though my heart clung to hope, doubt seeped in through the cracks. Would he really follow through? Would he really choose me? The next few days were torture. We texted, but it wasn't the same. There was a hesitancy in his words, like he was holding something back. I told myself it was because he was figuring things out, but deep down I was terrified it was because he had already decided. Then, one night, he showed up at my door. No warning, no text, just him, standing there with that same restless energy I had seen before our first kiss. "I told her," he said the moment I opened the door. My stomach dropped. And it's done." He let out a shaky breath. I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep lying to myself or to her. Relief washed over me so suddenly it almost knocked me off balance. I pulled him inside, closing the door behind us, and before I could say anything else, he kissed me. Hard, desperate, like he had been holding it in all week. This time there was no hesitation.
No restraint.
Just raw, unfiltered need. And when we finally pulled apart, both of us breathless, he whispered, "You're the only one I want." I should have felt nothing but joy, and part of me did. But another part, the cautious, wounded part, knew how fragile words could be. I wanted to believe him, but belief takes time. So I held him close, letting myself get lost in the warmth of him, telling myself it was enough for now. Because love, real love, isn't built in a single night. It's built in the mornings after, in the days that test you, in the moments when doubt creeps in and you choose each other anyway. And though I didn't know what the future would hold, I knew one thing. I was willing to choose him, again and again, even if it scared me. The days that followed were a blur of something that felt like both freedom and danger. Freedom, because for the first time I didn't have to hide what I felt around him. And danger, because every look, every touch, every kiss made me fall harder, made it harder to imagine a world where this didn't last. We fell into a rhythm quickly, almost too quickly, like our bodies and hearts had been waiting for this all along. He'd show up at my apartment after work, drop his bag by the door, and collapse onto the couch like it was already his home. I'd tease him about eating all my food, and he'd tease me about the way I always left the lights too dim, as if I preferred to live in shadows. And then, somewhere between the laughter and the teasing, his hand would find mine. Sometimes, he'd kiss me in the middle of a sentence, like he couldn't hold it in anymore. Sometimes, he'd rest his head against my shoulder while we watched TV, his breath steady, his body heavy against mine. And in those moments, I caught glimpses of something deeper, something that scared me more than I wanted to admit, because it wasn't just attraction. It wasn't just curiosity. It was intimacy. It was love. And love meant risk. One night, we were lying on my bed, the kind of quiet between us that wasn't empty but full of all the things we didn't have to say out loud. His fingers were tracing patterns across my chest, slow and absent-minded, like he didn't even realize he was doing it. I could have stayed in that moment forever. Then he said it. "You know, I've never felt this way about anyone before." The words froze me, not because they scared me, but because they meant so much more than I was ready to handle. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual, though my heart was already pounding. He shifted, propping himself up on one elbow to look at me. "I mean, with girls, it's always felt like I was doing what I was supposed to, like I was checking boxes. But with you," he trailed off, shaking his head, his eyes soft. "With you, it feels real. Feels like home." Home. That word cracked something open in me, because that was exactly what he felt like to me, too. And hearing him say it, it was everything I had wanted, everything I had been too afraid to hope for. But along with the joy came something else. The sharp, cutting awareness of how easily this could all shatter. I had lived long enough to know that love between men wasn't always simple. It wasn't always safe. There were questions, expectations, judgments, all the invisible weights that hung over us. I had learned to guard my heart, to protect it from the kind of disappointment that could break me. But looking at him then, his face inches from mine, his honesty spilling out in quiet words, I couldn't protect myself anymore. So I told him the truth. "I've been in love with you for a long time." The words slipped out before I could second-guess them. And the second they were out, I felt both terrified and free. He didn't pull away. He didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned down and kissed me. Slow, steady, certain. "I think I've been in love with you too," he whispered against my lips. It should have been the happiest moment of my life. And in many ways it was. But even as my chest swelled with joy, a shadow lingered at the edges. Because love doesn't erase fear. Love doesn't erase the reality of the world outside our little cocoon. The next morning, when we walked out together, that reality hit hard. We were careful, too careful. No holding hands.
No casual touches.
Just two friends walking side by side, like nothing between us had changed. And for the first time, I realized how much it would hurt to keep us hidden. Later, back at my apartment, I finally said what had been gnawing at me. I don't want to be your secret. He froze, the words hanging in the air like a challenge. I watched the muscles in his jaw tighten, his hands balling into fists at his sides. It's not that I don't want people to know, he said after a long pause. It's just, I don't know how. I don't know what it means yet. For me. For us. I nodded, even though it wasn't the answer I wanted. I knew this wasn't easy for him. I knew he was still figuring out what it meant to feel this way about me, about another man. I couldn't rush him. I couldn't demand more than he was ready to give. But a part of me ached all the same, because I wanted the world to know. I wanted to hold his hand in the daylight, to kiss him without fear, to claim him as mine without apology. And the truth was, I wasn't sure if I'd ever have that with him. So I said nothing more, swallowing the ache, forcing a smile, and pulling him close again. Because even if I couldn't have all of him yet, I couldn't let go of what we did have. Not when it felt this much like love. Loving him in secret was both a blessing and a curse. Behind closed doors, I got to see all the parts of him no one else did. The softness, the tenderness, the way he'd whisper my name like it meant more than any word he'd ever spoken. At night, in the quiet of my apartment, he was mine. Completely, unreservedly mine. But outside, in the daylight, we were back to being just friends. Two guys who laughed too loud, who lingered too long in each other's company, but never crossed the invisible line that the world would notice. It was a strange kind of dual existence. There was the us that belonged to the night. Hands intertwined, kisses stolen, conversations that stripped us bare until there was nothing left to hide. And then there was the us that belonged to the day. Distant, careful, guarded. The shift between the two tore at me in ways I didn't want to admit. I told myself I was being patient, that he needed time, that this was all new to him. But patience has its limits. Especially when your heart is burning for someone so fully it feels like it could consume you. One night, weeks after that first kiss, I couldn't hold it in anymore. We were lying in bed, his head resting on my chest, his fingers lazily tracing circles on my skin. It should have been one of those quiet, perfect moments. But instead, my chest was tight with words I had been choking back for too long. I can't keep pretending out there, I finally said. My voice was quiet, but sharp. He shifted, lifting his head to look at me. What do you mean? I met his eyes, my heart pounding. I mean, I don't want to keep acting like you're just my friend when you're not. I don't want to hide. I don't want to feel like I only get the real you when the world isn't watching. The words hung heavy between us. He sat up, running a hand through his hair, frustration flickering across his face. It's not that I don't want people to know. It's complicated. You know it is. I know, I said, my voice trembling. But what about me? What about what I need? Do you know how much it hurts to watch you laugh with people? To watch you walk beside me like nothing's different, when I'm dying to just reach for your hand? His silence cut deeper than any answer he could have given. I hated myself for the tears that welled in my eyes, but I couldn't stop them. Because this wasn't what I had dreamed of all those nights when I wished for him. I didn't want to be a secret. I wanted to be seen. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and raw. I'm scared. It was the most honest thing he'd said all night. Scared of what? I asked. Of what people will think. Of what this means about me. About us. I don't even know who I am right now. His voice cracked, and in that moment, I saw the weight he was carrying. The fear, the confusion, the way he was being pulled in two directions at once. And my anger softened, replaced by something gentler, though no less painful. I get it, I whispered. I really do. But I need you to understand that I can't keep living halfway. I can't keep loving you in the dark while pretending I don't in the light. He looked at me then, really looked, and for a moment I thought he was going to say something. Something that would fix it all, something that would make the ache go away. But instead, he pulled me into his arms and held me tight. Like if he squeezed hard enough, he could stop the world from intruding. We didn't speak again that night, but the silence said enough. The weeks that followed were harder. We were still us in private. Still kissing, still touching, still confessing things in whispers. But there was a tension now, a fracture we both pretended wasn't there. Every time we laughed together in public, I wondered if anyone could see the truth in our eyes. Every time he looked at me a second too long, I wondered if he'd ever be brave enough to let the world see it too. I told myself to be patient, to wait, to let him come to terms with himself at his own pace. But patience, when mixed with longing, feels like standing on the edge of a cliff, hoping someone will catch you before you fall. And some nights, when he left my apartment, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, asking myself the question I didn't dare say out loud. Was I enough for him to choose me in the daylight? Because if the answer was no, if the answer was that I was only ever going to exist in the shadows, then I wasn't sure how much longer my heart could survive it. One night, after another long silence that followed another long argument about us and the world, he grabbed my face in his hands, eyes blazing. "Don't you get it?" he said, almost shouting. "I want you. I've always wanted you, but I'm scared of losing everything else." And there it was, the truth I had known but hadn't wanted to face. I was asking him to choose, and he didn't know if he could. I closed my eyes, my chest aching, my voice breaking. "But if you keep hiding, you're going to lose me anyway." The words came out sharper than I intended, but I couldn't take them back, because they were true. His hands dropped from my face, his shoulders slumping like I had just taken the weight of the world and set it back down on him. Neither of us spoke after that. And in the silence, I realized that love, no matter how real, no matter how deep, wasn't always enough. Not if it had to live in the dark forever. The days after that fight felt different. Not in a dramatic way. We didn't stop seeing each other. We didn't cut ties or slam doors. If anything, on the surface, nothing changed. He still came over. We still lay on the couch together, still tangled ourselves up in each other's arms when the world outside got too loud. But there was a shift. A heaviness hung between us. One we both tried to ignore but couldn't quite escape. Every laugh carried a shadow. Every kiss carried a question. And in the quiet moments, when he thought I wasn't looking, I caught him staring off into nothing, his face tight with the weight of choices he didn't know how to make. I told myself to be patient, again, to hold on to the nights when he whispered my name like a prayer, when his hands trembled against mine like he was scared of how much he wanted me, to believe that those moments meant more than the fear that chained him down. But patience began to feel less like love and more like self-destruction. Because every day I gave him time was another day I wondered if he would ever be ready. One night, after another dinner that dissolved into silence, I couldn't take it anymore. I set down my fork, pushed my plate away, and looked at him, really looked at him. "I can't keep doing this," I said. His head snapped up, eyes wide. "Doing what?" "This. Like this. Halfway. In the dark." My voice cracked, but I didn't stop. "I love you, but I can't live like I don't. Not when every part of me is begging to." He leaned back in his chair, running a hand over his face, his frustration spilling out in a sigh. "Do you think this is easy for me? Do you think I don't want to hold your hand in public? Or kiss you without worrying who sees? I do."
God, Ido.
"But it's not that simple." "Then make it simple," I whispered. My hands were shaking. "Choose me." The words hung between us, heavy, dangerous, final. He froze, his jaw clenched, his eyes darting away from mine. And in that silence I had my answer. Tears burned my eyes, but I forced myself to stand, to step away before I broke in front of him. "I can't keep being the person you love in the dark. I need more. I deserve more." He stood too, reaching for me, but I pulled back. "Please." he said, his voice cracking. Don't walk away. Not yet. I looked at him, my chest aching with the weight of everything we were and everything we weren't. Then give me a reason to stay. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. But no words came. And that silence, God, that silence hurt more than anything else ever could. So I turned, grabbed my coat, and walked out into the night. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, the ache in my chest refusing to fade. My phone buzzed over and over, his name lighting up the screen, but I couldn't bring myself to answer, because what was left to say? The truth was, I had given him everything. My love, my patience, my vulnerability, and all I had asked in return was for him to choose me, fully, without hesitation. But he couldn't, and maybe that was the answer I had been too afraid to face all along. Still, I missed him. God, I missed him. Every second without him felt wrong, like I was missing a part of myself. But sometimes love isn't enough to keep you together. Sometimes love is the very thing that tears you apart, because it demands more than the other person can give. The days turned into weeks. I kept waiting for him to show up at my door, to say the words I had begged for, to prove me wrong. But he didn't. He stayed silent. And so did I. But silence has a way of speaking louder than words. And in that silence I began to understand. Maybe this was the end. Then, one evening, just as the sky was turning gold with sunset, there was a knock at my door. My heart knew it was him before my head did. I opened it to find him standing there, disheveled, eyes red like he hadn't slept in days. I can't do this without you, he said, his voice breaking. Something inside me cracked open again, all the walls I had tried to build crumbling in an instant. But I didn't step aside. Not yet. Do what? I asked softly. Life. Any of it. Without you. His voice trembled. I've been so scared of what people would think, of what it would mean. But I realized something, none of it matters. Not if it means losing you. He stepped closer, his hand reaching for mine. So if you'll have me, if you'll still have me, I choose you. All of you. In the dark. In the light. Everywhere. Tears blurred my vision. My body shook with relief, with love, with fear that this was just another dream I'd wake from. But when his hand closed around mine, firm and steady, I knew it was real. And for the first time, the fear inside me quieted. Because he had chosen. He had chosen me. When someone you love finally says the words you've been aching to hear, it doesn't feel like fireworks exploding in the sky. It feels quieter than that, like a weight sliding off your chest, like air filling your lungs after you've been holding your breath too long. That's what it felt like when he said, I choose you. I didn't rush into his arms right away. I stood there in the doorway, studying his face, searching for any trace of hesitation. I'd been burned before. Not by him, but by others who promised love and handed me silence instead. I needed to be sure. And when I looked into his eyes, I didn't see doubt. I saw fear, yes, but fear laced with determination. Fear that was ready to be fought, not surrendered to. So I let him in. The moment the door closed behind him, his lips found mine. The kiss was urgent, desperate, like he was trying to stitch together all the time we had lost. His hands gripped me tightly, anchoring himself to me as though I was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. We didn't make it to the couch. We barely made it past the hallway. It wasn't just a kiss this time. It was a vow, promise, a plea. And when we finally broke apart, both of us breathless, I pressed my forehead against his and whispered, I don't need perfect. I just need you. His eyes shone with something I hadn't seen before. Something raw, unguarded, certain. You have me, he said. All of me. The days that followed were different. Not because the world suddenly became easier, but because we stopped running from the truth. He started holding my hand when we walked together. Not always, not everywhere, but enough. Enough for me to know he wasn't hiding anymore. Enough for me to feel like we weren't just surviving in the shadows. The first time he kissed me in public, it was late at night, outside a corner store. The street was quiet, the air cool, the neon light buzzing above us. He leaned in, quick and certain, his lips brushing mine before I could even process it. I pulled back, wide-eyed. What was that? He shrugged, a playful grin tugging at his lips. What it looks like. I laughed, though my chest ached with something deeper than joy, because for him it was just a kiss. But for me it was proof. Proof that he wasn't just saying the words to keep me. Proof that he meant them. It wasn't always easy. There were still moments when he flinched, when his old fears resurfaced and his walls tried to rebuild themselves. But each time he chose me again. Each time he came back with a little more courage. And I realized something. Love isn't about never being afraid. It's about choosing each other even when you are. One night, months later, we were back where it all began. On my couch, a half-finished pizza on the table, the TV playing something neither of us cared about. He was sprawled out with his feet on the armrest, I was curled up at the other end, and for a moment it felt like nothing had changed. Except everything had. I caught him looking at me. Really looking. The way he had the night he first said he wanted my kiss. What? I asked, smiling. He hesitated for a moment, then said, Do you remember the first time? Of course I do. My chest tightened at the memory. I thought you were joking. He laughed softly. I wasn't. His smile faded into something more serious. That night, it was the scariest thing I've ever done, but also the best. I reached for his hand, lacing my fingers through his. You don't have to be scared anymore. I know, he said, squeezing my hand, because I'm yours now, always. And in that quiet, ordinary night, the same kind of night that had started everything, I realized something I had never fully let myself believe. We had made it. Through the fear, the hesitation, the heartbreak, the silence, we had made it to the other side. And it all started with one simple sentence. I want your kiss. Love doesn't always arrive with grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Sometimes it slips into the room quietly, hidden in laughter and late nights, in the comfort of routine, in the ordinary moments you don't think twice about. Until suddenly, it's there, undeniable, rewriting everything you thought you knew. That's how he came to me, not in a blaze of certainty, but in the trembling words of a boy who didn't yet know how to name what he felt. And that's how I came to him. Not in perfection, not without fear, but with a heart willing to wait, to fight, to believe. Now, when I look at him, when I feel the warmth of his hand in mine, when I hear him say my name like it's the most important word in the world, I know the truth. This love was worth every moment of doubt. Because it was real. Because it was ours. And because it all began on a normal night together, until he said he wanted my kiss.